everybody, Barry Johns here. Welcome back to another edition of Studio Talk. My last video that I put out last week, I went and visited Gustavo down at Red Lion Audio Studios here in Central Florida. And I'm here with Gustavo of Red Lion Studios here in Central Florida. And we kind of talked about his style, how he got started, how he incorporates analog gear into his workflow. And I think that was a pretty interesting discussion. So I want to encourage you to go back and watch that first. If you haven't watched that already, go back and watch that and then come back to this video because they are a two-part series. Now, in this next one, I thought it would be interesting to have Gustavo kind of walk through the beginnings of putting a mix together. Obviously, in the short amount of time that he spent doing this, that is nowhere near enough time to properly do a mix. And so, but he wanted to show, and I wanted to show, really how he incorporates various pieces of hardware analog gear in his mixing style as well. Now, what you're going to see here is he's mixing primarily almost all in analog. He's using some plugins very, very sparingly. But for the most part, it's all his analog gear, and I found it fascinating personally. He is actually very, very good at recording drums, incredibly good at that, and we do plan on getting back together and doing a whole workshop, really breaking it down to the minutia, because I think, in my opinion, drums are one of the hardest to record, and a lot of that has to do with the right space, knowing the right drums to use, understanding the mic placement, understanding how many mics you need to use to get the drum sound you're going after. And then it requires a serious investment because, you know, you're going to use anywhere from 12 to 16 channels or tracks, okay, to record your average drum set out there. And so if you're looking for great microphone preamps, well, 16 great microphone preamps is pretty doggone expensive, as well as all the other analog gear and everything. So, you know, I think it's pretty fascinating to watch him go through this. I think he's very good at capturing his drum sounds, and I think a lot of you can probably learn a few lessons from his personal experiences, okay? So let's get on to that video, and then we'll come back and close this thing out.
Okay, I just pulled up a session I recorded a couple years ago. Just to show you the process that I do, like while mixing. It's not gonna be like my final mix. It's just gonna show you all the routings and all the compressor or EQ that I mostly use for each instrument. And let's see how it sounds, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play a song. I might do just drum by itself. I might be soloing it like the kick drum, snare, room mics, overheads, whatever, reverb. And then I'm gonna bring the bass and then bring the guitar, and I'm gonna push the insert button for my mix bus process. That's gonna have the SSL Fusion, the stem audio compressor, Clariphonic, and the Pultec EQ. And well, let's just have fun with it. All right. Let me see. Go back from here. Okay, what I will do in this part, I will play the same part I just played, but I'm gonna press the insert button and pressing in and off so you can see how the fusion works with the stem audio. With the I might be flipping the Pultec EQ and all the stuff, so you see the character that each hardware unit they do for the recording. All right. So let's start playing with the stem audio. Okay, let's see how it sounds the bass though. The bass in this particular song I recorded with a lot of overdrive. Actually, I recorded with a guitar amp, if I'm not mistaken. I use like a fuzz pedal, and I just use one mic. That's it. You mean I just picture the sound that I wanted, record it, move on. So it's gonna be a little bit too distorted. Maybe for some people will be like, "Oh wow, that's way too much," but that's the sound that the band wants to get, and we were happy with it. And when you play everything together, it blends really good. So let's for that bass, I'm using the retro compressor, the 176, and I will be adding the bypass and taking the bypass off and in, so you can see the character that the compressor they do for the bass. All right. So let's play. To the bypass. I don't know if you notice it, the grid that it adds, right? It's like it makes everything 3D. So before you had the bass nice in the back, but when you put it in with the retro compressor, it just bring it alive. Like it move. You mean? And let's see how it sounds with drums, for example. When you add the guitars and the synth. Now let's just work with the drums, all right? So I'm using this API console box 2 that I love so much. Thank you, API, for making this. What I do in this particular case is because I don't have too many buses in this console, I just use an external summing mix. So I can send all whatever is going through is going to the first 8 channels. I'm not sending it to the programming, to the master fader. You know, I just send it like direct output to this loop throtter Saturn 8. Saturn 824 actually. It's a 24 channel summing box, and it just have a lot of like harmonic distortion that I really like it, and I'm using it for this type of music. That's kind of like an indie rock and roll that you need to have that depth in the drums, not too punchy, a little bit distorted. So this one does the perfect job for that. So what I'm doing is have the kick right here. I think I have a sample kick right here, a snare, sample snare, overheads, toms, and room mics right here. All right. So, and I'm using the EQ for each individual channels. All right. So let's see how it sounds. Let me just mute this, and let's just let's start with the kick. I'm gonna leave the insert button on it, all right? And all the I'm using I forgot to tell you, I'm using for the mix bus for the drum bus. I'm using a compressor, the API compressor, the 2500, the 5500 EQ, and the loop throtter Saturn 8 distortion box. So like you see, I like a lot of like distortion stuff, for sure. All right. So let's see. Let's start with the natural kick. Okay, for the snare, I'm using the API EQ 5508, 558, my bad. And I'm using the DBX 160 compressor on it. This is, for me, the most uh, affordable compressor out in the market. For VCA compressor, it does the job perfectly. You can have all the compressor you want, $1 million compressor. But what the DBX does for me in the snares and toms is like 5 million for me. I mean, money cannot buy that. So let's see. I'm gonna take the EQ in and out. I'm cutting, I think I'm cutting 800 2 dBs, and I'm boosting 7K 2 dBs. I mean, nothing crazy, just a little bit, like 2 dB each one. And this compressor, I remember when I tracked this drum, I tracked with this compressor already, so I'm not overusing it because it's already had the DBX sound. All right. This is this is trigger snare. Using the 551 EQ from Nif, Rupert Nif, super crispy EQ, and I'm using the how you call it? The Alan Smart. This compressor. It's an RVCA compressor. It sounds really good. Like I said, I do subtle stuff because I already track with all the hardware on it, all right? So it's already have color and mojo, the tracking, all right? Room mics. Room mic are going to the Loop Throttle Monster compressor. This part is personal. Let's bring everything in. So basically this is the routing that I use for mixing my stuff. I break up the drums right here, adding all the EQ if it needed. Sometimes it doesn't need it. If it doesn't mean that I need to use it. Sometimes you don't need to use your stuff. It's just whatever the tracking tell you to do. You know what I mean? So like I said, break out the drums, bring it to the summing box, return it to 1 and 2 right here in the console, and bring the lead guitar right here, rhythm guitar right there, bass 7, and vocals and other stuff I have in 8, 9, 10. But I didn't have the chance to tune the vocals and to see what's going on in the vocals, so I'm not gonna bring it to the mix yet. And I'm using 11, 12 in the synthesizers. And 13 and 14 actually are the reverb that I'm using for the room mics for the drums. This. So what I do is, for example, I have because I have the room mics right here in 7/8, I'm sending a copy to the Bricasti reverb, the M7, and then return it right here. I don't like to use reverb directly to like kick drum or any shell. It just makes sound boomy to me. I like to use reverb on the room mics. You mean to make it more space. And that's pretty much the setup that I use for mixing. I hope you guys enjoy it. And I just want to play it really quick.
All right, well, hopefully you enjoyed that and got at least a little bit of a glimpse into kind of what it's like working in an analog world if you're not used to that. Now, this is one guy's style. I happen to have a lot of respect for him. I think he's a great guy. I think he knows what he's doing. And it was a pleasure getting to talk to him and getting to know him. We actually connected via Facebook through my channel, and I look forward to a long-term relationship with Gustavo because I really found him pretty fascinating, interesting, and a generally great guy who happens to be very talented, all right? So until next time, oh, wait a minute. If you like this video, do me a favor. Hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell. Help me out. Help me grow this channel so you can get more content like this if that interests you. Do me a favor. Leave some comments down below. Let me know your thoughts about this. And please, let's not turn that into the whole analog versus plugins and the cost ratio and everything else. I think everybody already understands it, and that's pointless. If you're going with analog gear, most likely you're diving head over heels into it, and you feel it's going to do what you want it to do for you. If you're going to stay in the box, absolutely nothing wrong with that. You can do fantastic work in the box. Let's don't make it about one versus the other, but rather the interesting point about what can be done in the analog world, okay? So until next time, I hope every one of you have a great day. Bye-bye.